Hey guys, welcome back to our latest frequently asked question, and today Adam from New Jersey is asking, what is your take on elbow and knee sleeves? Well, when we're talking about elbow and knee sleeves, it goes back to what we say about everything. It just depends. It really depends on a lot of different factors, but let me cover a few different things first. It depends on why we're using it, and let's look at a couple different scenarios, or a couple different scenarios that you would see in a gym, and I'm sure if you've been in a gym before, you've seen this before. Scenario number one. Scenario number one is where you see somebody and they're probably not training very hard. Or maybe they're training hard, they're just not using a lot of weight, but you always see them with, both knees are wrapped up, or they've got sleeves on both knees, they've got sleeves on their elbows, they've got, they wear a weight belt wherever they go. So I guess we could also encompass weight belts into the situation. So that first scenario is they wear protection no matter what they do, no matter what they're doing, no matter where they're going. Scenario number two is when you see someone that is doing some max lifting, whether it's powerlifting preparation, whether they're doing a few sets that are extremely heavy, weight that is hard for their body to stabilize on its own. That's dangerous in itself, but some very heavy training. Now let's look at that first scenario. Number one, my take on it is that they should be used extremely minimally, and that they're used, if someone is not training very heavy, that the sleeves are used as almost a band-aid. They're used as almost like a fear, almost like a comfort, where people are using them because they feel more comfortable when they're wearing them. But it doesn't fix the problem. It doesn't fix the issue that obviously if someone's wearing knee protection, if someone's wearing elbow protection or a weight belt, they are not comfortable with something, or perhaps their knees hurt, or perhaps the elbows hurt, or perhaps the low back hurts. And they're afraid that if they train too much, or if they don't train without them, that their risk of injury goes up. What that comes from that increase in injury, that increased risk in injury, or that fear of getting injured, comes from a weak core. It comes from a weak stability-oriented system. It comes from having muscular imbalances. And what I mean by that is that proportionately for your size, the weaker your core is, and let's establish what your core is. Your core is the trunk of your body. You take away your limb, your core isn't just your abdominals or your six-pack. You take away your limbs, you take away your legs, you take away your arms, that's your core. So that encompasses through your abdominal region, external and internal abdominal muscles. That covers your hip muscles, it covers your low back muscles, your glutes, all the way up through your back. It covers all of that. So when the core, all of those muscles are weak, that is the midline of your body. That's where the stability of your entire system comes from, is right there. So when those muscles are weak, you will have greater injuries that spawn out to other areas of your limbs, to your elbows, to your knees. And especially, obviously, if you're training with any sort of weight, and then you have different core issues, there is going to be increased injury in your groin and your low back, whatever it may be. So that is the first thing. If the knee pads, the elbow pads, the weight belts can go away for almost everyone. I hardly ever wear a weight belt or anything, or elbow pads or anything anymore. I don't take joint supplements. I don't do any of that. And the reason being is I spend significant amounts of time doing what we call corrective exercise, corrective training. And all corrective training means is that we look for and we identify weak areas in people's body, underactive muscles versus overactive muscles. And underactive muscle, what a muscular imbalance is that I spoke about previously, is a muscular imbalance comes from one weak muscle and its antagonist or its opposite muscle becomes too overactive. And what that happens is, for instance, the foot should be just like this. The foot should be in this position, and when there is rolling in, rolling out, anything that happens into the foot, it is caused because you have one muscle on top or anywhere in your body, on top or below, that becomes underactive. It becomes underutilized. It becomes weak, and therefore its antagonist or its opposite becomes overactive, and therefore it starts to create a muscular imbalance. And that happens everywhere throughout your body. So what ends up happening a lot of times, and you see people that have too much of an arch in their back, too much of a rounding of their back, you know, their shoulders hunch forward. And all that's caused from is the human body is designed, as I stated in a previous video, you hear a lot saying, well, everyone is unique, everyone's different, not the way the human body is, because the human body has been designed to move exactly the same in everybody. So when you know, the back should be like this, the spine should be in this position, whatever the structure of your body should be in a certain position. And when you see overcompensation, when you see all of those things, it's leading from a muscular imbalance, first caused usually from an underactive, a weakened muscle, and then you have its opposite or its antagonist that takes over as an overactive muscle. So I'm not going to be able to tell you how to identify that. The thing to do is to contact us to have another corrective exercise specialist who can adapt that and recognize that for you. What I am going to say is, when you have those muscular imbalances, you need to identify what they are so you can put a corrective strategy in place, so you can activate and strengthen the underactive, weakened muscles. And then, well, first of all, what you want to do is you want to lengthen or inhibit. You want to be able to loosen up, relax the tightened muscle, identify what that tightened muscle is, and then go in and strengthen or activate that weakened muscle. And through time and all of that, and through proper posture and identifying where those weak and overly tight muscles are, everything starts to get pulled back into alignment. And therefore, if you think about it, your muscles, your bones, they all connect into joints. When people wear knee sleeves, when people wear elbow sleeves, when they wear weight belts, those are joint areas. Muscles, bones come into those joints and connect. All the pain and radiates into those areas unless you have a muscle pull. So by doing corrective training, by identifying muscular imbalances and improving muscular imbalances, you're going to be greatly reducing the pressure and pain that gets put to those areas, because there is no overcompensation. Everything is pulled back into alignment, and the need for sleeves, for knee, elbow protection, for ankle wraps, for all of that goes away significantly. So the other scenario is, should you use weight belts, sleeves, knee wraps when you're training extremely heavy, when you're doing powerlifting? And the answer is obviously yes, because that only goes so far. Your body, you get your body nice and stable, and you're going to be able to handle pretty much anything. You're going to be able to do squats. You're going to be able to do a lot of different stuff without using a weight belt. But you're going to get to a point, and I've been there, and we're talking about extreme things. We're talking about extreme training. When you get to the point where you're using so much weight that your body, you know, the knees start just caving in. They start getting weak. They start, you know, doing all of that. You know, where it's going to get to a point where having a belt, having knee wraps, having elbow wraps is going to help stabilize those joints because the weight is just too heavy. But for the most part, even in those scenarios, even for a power lifter, even for an extreme athlete who trains with a lot of weight, the more work they do through their core, we just identified that. It's not just your six-pack. It's external muscles, and there's tons. There's even more internal stabilizing muscles than there are external muscles. But when those external muscles are strengthened and internal muscles are strengthened through the core, and they've identified muscular imbalances and they're focusing on strengthening those areas and loosening up the tight areas, it significantly reduces the amount of external support they're going to need, because when they're squatting, the knees aren't caving in, the hips aren't shaking, the low back isn't rounding or arching. It's more stable, and they may need a belt on heavier sets to provide extra stability, but they're not going to need it as much because things are much more stable in nature. The example I give a lot of people is when they're doing a leg press, and it's just something I've seen a lot of doing squats. Typically what should happen is the hip should be in a certain position, the knees, you know, the feet, the knees, everything should align up. And when most people squat down and the weight is too heavy, the knees will start caving in. the feet will start rotating out. And a lot of times people will say, well, you just got to keep your knees in this position. They're right, but it usually comes from having to have a stronger hip region, stronger gluteus medius on the side, stronger glute region and lower back area. In those areas, and maybe loosening up their through their IT bands, loosening up their calves because too much tension and tightness go there. But doing that all together will end up putting the body back into better alignment, causing better proportion across the body, allowing that training to happen the way it's supposed to be. I hope that answers your question, Adam. I appreciate you submitting your question, and I hope that you guys have a great day. And make sure, whether it's asking me, someone in your gym, someone else at yourvirtualfitness.com, ask a corrective exercise specialist on how you can improve muscular imbalances. Oops, guys, forgot one more quick thing. I need to cover injuries real quick. If you have a specific injury and you're seeing a doctor, physical therapist, and they have you wear a protective device for whatever your joints are, which happens often, follow their advice. Definitely, you need to work on corrective exercise. You need to wear those things when you're training extremely heavy, everything I said in the video. But if there's a specific injury that the doctor's having you wear for it, wear that. I don't want to tell you that you shouldn't wear that if you're recovering from an injury. Follow your doctor's or therapist's advice. But what we're talking about in this video are for non-injured people, or those that have completely recovered from an injury. Have yourself a great day.
When you feel that something's wrong, I'll shelter you and keep you warm. I'll never let you walk alone.